if he can be a rim deterrent, if he can be a guy who can, just make things difficult with his size and give guys a different look. And that's what you're asking him. He's not going to be Jahlil Okafor going top of the draft as an outdated type of player. And all of a sudden now you spend all this heavy draft capital on him. You're drafting this guy to play a specific role on the team. So with that said, what teams do you think would best fit Zach Edey onto their roster construction?
I think I saw somebody because I think it's Vicini, right, from The Athletic, and he posted a new mock draft today. Do I have that right, Corey?
I believe so, and
yeah,
did.
And he had the Knicks taking Johnny Furphy at 19, and I think Edey at like 24. And I looked at that, and I was like, perfect. Why would that not work, right? The Knicks are literally last in pace in the league. We're 30th in the league in pace. I think since the All-Star break, the Knicks are like top 5, top 10 in net rating, number 1 in defensive rating. And a guy like Zach Edey coming off the bench rather than Jericho Sims makes me feel really good. Not to say that I hate Jericho Sims, right? But Jericho Sims really struggles to catch the ball, really struggles on the defensive boards. The boards in general is super athletic, but a lot of times doesn't really know what he's doing, even after 3 seasons. And I think if you swap out just a 1-for-1, right? You swap out Jericho Sims, let him walk, and you add Zach Edey to that Knicks roster, or Knicks roster that's not looking to run, a Knicks roster that is used to having a interior post player like Julius Randle. I don't mind that at all, especially in that range, right? We've talked about his draft stock being around 24, 25. If the Knicks end up in that range and grab him to be their backup center, to go along with Mitchell Robinson, and maybe if they pay Hartenstein as like a third center, I think that would be a brilliant move by the Knicks front office, in my opinion, just because of what he can offer in as a third center role with the amount of minutes he'd get. And of course, as we've seen with both Hartenstein and Mitchell Robinson, the injury history that they have, adding a guy like Edey as insurance rather than having to play, Precious Achiuwa at the 5 and Jericho Sims, or re-signing Taj Gibson 12 times, I think that's a damn good option, in my opinion.
Did you see Mitch said he might be open to coming off the bench on Instagram?
Because I did see that.
Then he can cook. And he can get into his bag.
Some pull-up threes from Mitchell Robinson.
All that work he's doing in the offseason. All for naught. I think the Knicks would be an interesting fit. Larger than life guy in a larger than life city. I think that would be really fun. I think a team like Boston,
yes,
would be interesting. The 3 teams that I had were Boston, Phoenix, Miami. Phoenix, I think, Nurkic's having a great year. It's been phenomenal. Injury history, right? Let's get some depth there. Another team that plays kind of a slower pace, Miami, same thing. And then, the thing that all 3 of those teams have in common, outside of the fact that they're, playoff teams that believe that they're contenders, is that they're all going to, at some point, if they believe that they are a championship level team, have to go through a Joel Embiid, a Nikola Jokic, right? These guys who are in their way. And if you get a guy like Zach Edey, who's by no means going to be a Jokic stopper, an Embiid stopper, or anything like that, but is a guy who can at least match up with those guys physically, give them a little bit of a different look, and maybe, just make things a little bit harder. Nobody makes things hard for those guys. It's just, can you make it a little bit harder than it would typically be? And Edey is such a physically dominant force that maybe in that kind of role, those kind of teams would be really well equipped to do that. Like, you can't load up on Zach Edey if on the perimeter you have Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant and Devin Booker on the floor. Ton of spacing, can't double down because you're not leaving any of those guys, right? That's a situation where it could work. I think that, and again, what I said earlier about making him, allowing him to, kind of give some of the guys they have to go through a little bit of a work, and maybe he makes them work on the other end a little bit too. So I think those are the type of teams that should be targeting Edey.
Yeah.
Because I think he can bring a value that not 3-player akin to those kind of teams.
Really quickly, Corey, before we move on, I just want to say I love your Phoenix call out just because, I mean, look, this is the healthiest Nurkic has been in a long time. And also I want to say, like, if Yusuf Nurkic can get better at defense, then why can't Zach Edey is my point. And also Phoenix could use another big coming off their bench rather than what they have right now. So I think that's a great shout. I think that'd be really interesting. Or even if, like, I don't know, if Toronto's interested and Toronto uses a pick later on and he gets to go play in Canada, that's always fun. Not really a basketball thing, but just fun.
Absolutely. All right. So before we move on, Albert, it's time for you to cook. I need you to sell me this pen on Purdue big man Zach Edey.
Okay, so this may be like an anthropological study, but I don't know how many human beings are out there on planet Earth that stand 7'4", that are as proportionate as Zach Edey and moves like he does at that size. I think NBA teams should be exploiting that advantage, just the advantage that he has over the rest of mankind, being the size that he is and the athleticism that he has and the touch that he has. Yeah, if you're grabbing a guy like that, late 20s, early second round, you should be really excited because Zach Edey is an absolute beast who's been highly productive, both scoring, rebounding, all over the place in college. You should be interested in grabbing a guy like that in that range because you can bring him off the bench, have him play about 18, 22 minutes for you every single night, and he'll be productive in those minutes. You're not grabbing him to be your starting center per se. You're probably not grabbing him to be your number one option as he's been in college, but he's gigantic. He has great touch. He knows how to score the ball on the inside. And we think he's got more to offer defensively than he's shown in college because of the role that he's played. So if you're interested in all that, you should grab Zach Edey, probably late first round, early second round.